My name is Dusty Cole, and welcome to the Business Builders Podcast, where we interview salespeople, entrepreneurs, and business owners and learn how they overcame challenges to build a successful business. Welcome back to the Business Builders Podcast for episode 4. My name is Dusty Cole, and I'm super excited to welcome Mike Carey with Motto Mortgage Local. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. So the whole purpose or the whole goal behind this podcast is to share stories about other entrepreneurs and how they overcame challenges and struggles to build a successful business. And the reason why we invited Mike on the podcast is, one, he's a successful, experienced loan officer, but he moved from Memphis to the Gulf Coast several years ago. So maybe we start with that, Mike, just kind of why you chose to move down here and what your business was like before that.
Yes, my wife and I decided long ago that we wanted to get someplace and retire close to the water. So in 2016, we really got serious. Our daughter was in high school and our son was starting high school. And I said, if we don't do it now, we won't do it at all.
Right.
So we put the house on the market, and 7 days later we had a contract, and really overwhelmed us. But we went ahead and transitioned down. And one of the hardest parts of the transition is thinking, wow, I could go anywhere and do this business. But the reality is that when you leave a market, you leave your relationships there. You leave your customers there for the most part.
Right.
So coming to a new market, getting started,
Right.
extremely challenging.
Right. So, when you were getting ready to leave, well, tell us a little bit about your business in Memphis first, right? I mean, so you built a very successful business there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was in Memphis for about 18 years.
Wow.
Working on my personal production. Also worked in different capacities as leader, manager. I managed a large Wells Fargo office, probably 25 originators, doing about $40 million a month.
Wow.
But when you work for a big company like that, you're all in. And eventually, I just got tired of the challenges of working for the big company, and then having that life balance, if you will.
Right. They kind of own you, right?
Yeah, they own you when you work for a big company like that. So
Right.
I went back into originating and started just kind of revisiting and reinventing myself to a different part of the business.
And what year was that?
That was in 2015.
Okay. All right.
So I was back in it about a year before I decided to move.
Okay.
So that gave me the opportunity to go out and implement some of the skills that I was managing
Right.
and coaching.
Right.
To go out and talk to realtors, talk about programs, set up sales calls. So that business, at my peak, I was doing about $36 million a year there annually.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved down here, all of that stopped.
Right. So let's talk about that. So you knew you were going to move down here. And first of all, I cannot imagine going, and taking our expansion teams is one thing, right? You take your systems, and you still have your home base, and you're trying to plant, in another area. But that's not what you were doing. You're taking your family, right? That's a whole different thing. So I can't imagine taking my personal business and just, okay, we're not doing business in Gulf Shores anymore. We're in Montgomery or wherever it would be, and having to start over in regards to relationships. So were you scared?
I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared, but it was a healthy, excited scare, if you will.
Okay.
My wife had made a commitment to bring the family down, and we were going to do whatever it took to be successful.
Yep.
Now, it might have meant I had to change careers.
So you were willing to do that
Absolutely.
for your family?
Absolutely.
Whatever it took.
We wanted a lifestyle change. We wanted to have a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so our goal was to come down here and make it happen.
Wow. So you had a big why. We teach salespeople now, start with your why, and get emotionally connected to it, so then that's the reason why you do the hard things, if you're really connected to your why. So it sounds like you were really connected to doing that for your family.
Absolutely. I was connected to that because
Yeah.
it was important to my wife and I to offer our son, because our daughter was off in college, just to offer him a different experience. I mean, I couldn't imagine anything better than life on the beach as a teenager,
Right.
and all those things that came with it.
Right.
So we were making a huge sacrifice for my wife and I to come down and just, are we going to be able to fund this experience that we're looking for?
Yep.
Are we going to be able to make it happen?
Right.
So just the process around that, the activities that we did to make that happen. My wife was an interior decorator back in Memphis.
Yep.
And she took a job with a local furniture company doing some work for them.
Yep.
And I was still actually doing loans back in Memphis.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't close we moved here in May of 2016. I didn't close my first Alabama loan until April of 2017.
Took you about a year.
Yeah. So that whole time I was still marketing back to Memphis. I was calling agents. I was talking to my database, just trying to get enough loans in the pipeline to fund our dream.
So let's go back to Memphis before you came down here, because I think people get into my business, my industry, and your industry maybe with a little bit of false conceptions on what it actually takes to be successful and how long it takes. So you're moving down here. What were some things you did before you came to set yourself up to be successful?
Well, before I came down, I did a lot of research.
Okay.
I found out who the players were in my industry.
Yep.
I called all those folks and just talked about the market.
Yep.
And
so you took the courage to do that,
Yeah.
to call those people.
I called those people and asked them about the market and what kind of challenges they were having in the market currently, and kind of compared them to the challenges I was having in Memphis. I called the brokers, the real estate brokers, and wanted to interview them. I was coming down. I wanted to set appointments and talk through my business plan to see what they thought about it.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to have a couple people respond and meet with me, which I was very excited about because a lot of people did not.
Right.
But I just shared with them what my goals were, what my plans were, and how I plan to market and build my business here.
Right.
And I took their feedback. I mean, I took it very personally. I knew they knew how to make it happen. So I applied some of the principles some of the advice they gave me.
So I find a lot of courage in that and a lot of humility in that, that you knew that you needed to come to a new place. And even though you probably knew you had the skills to do it, but you had to learn the customs of that area. You had to learn the players and things and humble yourself to do that. So I admire that a lot. So you made it down here. And so what was it like, say, in your first 3 to 6 months?
Well, the first 3 to 6 months, it was like being on vacation.
Okay.
I mean, literally, we didn't realize that we lived there.
Yeah.
We thought we were on extended vacation. So, going home at lunch and going to the beach for an hour, and then going back and doing work. So that kind of wore off when my son started school. And then we realized, hey, we're here.
Yeah.
We're renting a house, and we've got to find a way to put this plan in place and make sure we can sustain it.
Right.
Because we moved down here and we had X amount of dollars, and all we heard from everyone is that people like you move down here all the time, and after the season's over, they move back.
Yep.
And so we were committed to bringing our family down and building my business here. And it was hard. Yep. Because I mean, the one thing believe me, I harvested a lot of no's, made a lot of phone calls, and got hey, I'll work with somebody already.
Did you ever want to give up?
Man, I couldn't give up.
Yeah.
That wasn't even an option. So we just kept at it, and we kept, building on the baseline foundation. Number 1, getting an office. Number 2, getting a telephone. And number 3, getting that first deal closed. Because I knew if I closed that first deal and people, took a chance on me, that they wouldn't be sorry they did.
I can relate to that. I mean, I remember being an inexperienced real estate agent. You got to know what you have to sell, and I remember going and sitting in living rooms, and it'd be like, I can't sell experience. What can I sell? Effort. I can sell energy. I can be the most energetic, high effort person they can hire, and then a certain amount of those people would hire me because of that, so you sell what you can, in those times. But, so you got you a couple deals going. What did you do to kind of get those deals going? Like, what were some tactical things?
One of the first things I did is I aligned myself with people just like me, people that may be coming here starting a business, networking with them, collaborating with them on different activities, and just getting involved.
If I remember, there was a group of businesses that you kind of partnered with back then, wasn't there, or something like a networking group?
There was a networking group. We actually tried to create a networking group, and we got a bunch of folks together, and we started, coaching people on video, coaching people on content, and just trying to get this cohesive group together. And that didn't work so well, so we went on to another group. So we just continually tried to take the core people that we were with and just take them to other networking groups and build a group around that group. And that took a while.
But I think the takeaway is you found a core group in
Absolutely.
a new place. That's not easy. But these are all people that were young in their business, if I remember correctly, trying to grow, right?
Absolutely. Everybody was brand new. Everybody was going through some of the same challenges in similar industries. And we pulled a lot from each other, and we celebrated everybody's success, which was a good thing, because we took a core group of people, and that didn't matter what wins they had, we celebrated those wins, because I know, and a lot of people know, that business isn't built on home runs or overnight successes. It's the day-to-day singles, first downs to get you where you need to be.
That's right.
And so we celebrated those things, and we high-fived, and we said, man, that is awesome. So we just tried to create some encouraging environments for these core group of people, because they needed it, because not every day was easy.
And I remember you guys kind of collaborating on social media and lifting each other up during that time. And I remember that vividly, you doing that. So what about in the agent community? What did you do to try to make your mark, or what did you not do?
Well, the thing I started with is just traditional phone calls, calling people and asking them for business, or asking them to meet me so I could share my story.
Yep.
Because I thought, not that my story is unique, but it's hard, and not a lot of people get up and move from one city to the other and try to build a business.
Right.
Not many people have enough courage, I guess, to do that. And then once I got deals, I just leveraged the transaction continuously. I said, the one thing that I know that I'm going to do better than anybody else is communicate. And I put in systems in my business where I had touch points. I believe in every transaction, there's 5 or 6 good, solid touch points where you can drip on your clients, give them updates on your partners. And I just did that. I just did it consistently. I think that's what paid off more than anything, was the fact that they knew on Tuesday they were going to get a call or an email from me telling them what's going on, even if nothing was going on.
What I remember vividly, and something I kind of learned from you a little bit, was when you had bad news, that you attacked that just as quickly, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You attack the bad news even more urgently
you
than
can't hide it. I'm sorry.
Bad news. Bad news has a way of aging worse.
Yeah.
So we attack the bad news first.
Right.
We get that out of the way. We try to look at a transaction and try to figure out where our obstacles may be. And I think people who've been in this business long enough, and it's experience and wisdom, that you can look at a transaction and say, I know we're going to have some issues there, so let's get in front of it right now. Let's talk about it. So I think it's important to have conversations about the good things as well as the things that could come up, because if you've talked about it, then you're mentally prepared to address it if needed.
So what advice do you have to someone who, because I've seen these trends in salespeople, right? Something bad's happening in a transaction, and they just don't want to handle it, right? They're afraid to call the client and deliver the news, or they're afraid of the conflict. Any advice to them on that?
What I would tell them is, don't avoid it.
Yeah.
Get it out on the table. Talk about it as quickly as you know something about it. And that way, it's better to kill something early than to kill it late.
Right. And you'll gain more respect that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So Mike, you moved down here, and what were some things, you didn't know many people, right? What were some things you did to get more involved in the community?
I think, Dusty, one of the biggest things that I did to get involved in the community was, I've been, like I said, I've been coaching my son all my life. So as he got into high school, I still wanted to be on the field.
Right.
And I realized there was a club here called the Dolphin Athletic Club. And I said, look, I want to be part of that.
Right.
And when I got in that club, I realized that there were so many needs and there's so many things I could change. And I said, man, I want to be the president of this club. I see so much opportunity for everyone. But as I got in and was the president, I started meeting more people, the administration, the coaches, parents. And I just networked with those folks, tell them what I did. And I started gaining influence. And I believe that may be the single biggest thing that I did to integrate myself in this community.
Yeah. You became a giver.
Yeah. I mean,
You became a giver. Yeah.
Literally, it took probably 50% of my time to do that. So I missed that on a lot of business.
I think I bought a few tickets from you or something.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, there were things about that.
Fundraising.
Yeah. Constantly looking for ways to make money. Because that was one of the things that I realized that, not everybody can afford $100 helmet or, $100 basketball shoes.
Right.
Or there were so many things at the school that they needed. So I just said, look, we're going to get that. I mean, one of the biggest things that we did is that the coach came to me and said, Mike, I want new helmets. And I want these special helmets. They cost $350 a piece.
Okay.
I said, Coach, how many do you need? And he goes, I need 47. So I just did the math and I started getting on the internet and saying, look, we need to fund these helmets.
Right.
I need everybody to buy a helmet for the school. And man, the first person that called me bought 10.
Right. I mean,
And I said, man, we can get this done.
It's amazing with just a little bit of leadership
Yeah.
and with some of the little bit of influence, people want to help. And that's where social media can be used for good. Right?
Absolutely. And I leverage that constantly.
Yeah.
Is that if we needed something, somebody would come to me and say, look, we need weights. So I built a campaign around a mini foundation to strengthen the Dolphins. And we'd go film videos inside the workout rooms and show the weights and the conditions. And we'd film the kids working out. So it was just a big thing. I tried to create a big need, and it was a big need.
Right.
But create a campaign so people absolutely knew, hey, this is something we need to get behind.
Right.
And I find ways to do that in my business all the time, is finding ways to, market what I do in maybe a different way than just say, hey, I'm a loan officer.
Right.
Give me your mortgage.
More value.
Absolutely. Bring them more value. And in turn, they're going to remember that.
Absolutely. So what else did you do, to meet people in the community?
Like I said, get involved, go to, my wife's a big socializer, so she got me involved with a lot of stuff as well.
Right.
She's involved in several things in the community, and
Gotcha.
we show up together, and she introduces me to people.
Yep.
But this is absolutely, back in Memphis, they would look at me and say, hey, you're Missy's husband, right? And now they look at my wife and say, you're Mike's wife, right?
Yeah. She probably doesn't like that.
She does not. But we have a good partnerirship.
Yeah, you seem like you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you've raised 2 great kids, man, and you got one working for you. That's a blessing, and working with you, probably betterly spoken. So you started to gain some rhythm, some momentum. So when did you know, or when did you feel that things were going to be all right? Right, things were going to be okay.
And believe it or not, the first of 2020, I really saw my business grow exponentially. People were calling me that had never called me before. Right. And giving me referrals. I was getting referrals from my close customers in the area. So I really started getting that traction first of 2020, end of 2019 and into 2020, and then COVID hit. Right. And it was eerily slow at that point.
That was scary, right?
It was scary. But God, I remember like it happened yesterday when the beaches opened May 5th of that year. Yeah. It just started coming back.
All that pent-up demand.
There
was real pent-up demand.
Absolutely. Refinance activity because rates were low. Yeah. Lower than I'd ever seen them.
That's right. It was like a bonanza of refinances.
So that just kind of started the snowball where, I was closing 15, 20 deals a month.
Wow, that's incredible.
And with a relatively small team based on that volume.
Pretty lean and
Yeah, pretty lean and mean. I tried to control. I tried to do as much work as I can with as few amount of people.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has some skin in the game.
Yep.
Everybody's accountable for a chunk of business, and I put a lot of trust in that team as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I'm a delegator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to say I need you to do this, do that, and I expect that they'll do it.
What I kind of noticed, and tell me what you think about this. I think, in certain industries, when you think of say loan officers on the Alabama Gulf Coast, you could probably think of 5. Okay, you think of who's the best real estate agent in Gulf Shores, you could probably think of 5. You started to make the 5, I think, where people remembered who you are, and that's hard to do, when there's however many. Why do you think that is? How'd that happen?
I think it was just the consistency.
Yeah.
The way I treat the clients. I mean, I really do put a lot of emphasis on the experience. I think if you can have a good experience, everybody enjoys it.
Right.
Right. And if you can make a bad experience into a good experience, everybody appreciates and enjoys that. And even the worst experience, if they're handled properly, I think people can appreciate that as well. So,
yeah.
It was just really important to me that the customers really, and I do feel this way, I sincerely, genuinely want them to get what they want. Even if that means I don't get the deal.
Right. I've seen you do that many times.
Yeah.
So a couple things on my mind. So COVID, like what did you learn throughout all that from a business standpoint through that very confusing time?
What I learned most of all about that is you've got to find ways to work. And I had the opportunity to, be part of these big collaborative Zoom calls where we have several industry on the same call, just talking about our challenges because everybody was having them, So that was very important to support the industry in more ways than just closing loans.
That's leadership.
Yeah, encouraging those folks out there who were struggling. Calling your customers. I mean, I spent every afternoon for a week just calling my closed customers, checking on them. How are you doing?
Right.
Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do for you?
Then Sally hit, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, then Sally hit. So that was the year, man.
Sally was my first hurricane. Jeez.
Yeah, when you were saying that, that's what it was for. I was really thinking after Sally, right? It was a month before I picked up a stick in my yard.
Yeah.
You got your team members, you got all your clients and people on all this waterfront property that's just devastated. But, so what'd you learn through that, your first hurricane?
Well, I learned that take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because I think the one thing that no one did during Sally was took it seriously. I went to bed that night. I relocated to Foley instead of the island just to get a little further away. But I went to bed that night not even thinking it was going to be that big a deal.
Same. And I'm from here. So, I think Sally was a little bit of an anomaly in the way that it hit us and the way that the forecasters talked about it. And it definitely caught us by surprise. But, but you definitely, after that, you become a leader in your community if you are one, right? And you're trying to bring people together and help people, et cetera. So what's your business like now?
I would say my business is a mature business. I think I think people know who I am now, which is a blessing. But the good part about my business now is that I brought my son to my business.
Yep.
So that just helps me springboard another business, teach him how to build a business, teach him how to interact with people. So now instead of my successful mortgage origination business, now I have a coach. I've been coaching my kid all his life.
Right.
To learn how to talk to people. What's important, listening to your client and picking those things out that you can go back to later in the transaction.
So, all right, this podcast is about overcoming challenges. Sometimes there are challenges when you work with family members, right? So what have you learned, or what is the challenge there with working with a family member?
I think the biggest challenge that I have working with a family member is treating it like a business.
Right.
My son is my son,
Yeah.
but he is also my partner. So he has to understand that, there's things about partnerships that you have responsibility to,
Right.
like being punctual, returning phone calls, returning emails, making sure you send accurate information out.
So if he doesn't, you treat him like anyone else.
Yeah, we
There's a
coach and we
consequence. You
say,
coach.
look,
Yeah.
this is how this should have been handled.
Right.
Or I think a lot of things people miss is the opportunity to praise people. So
Yes.
when I praise my son in business, it's
Mm-hmm.
differently than when I'm praising him as my son.
Right. Give me an example.
Just, as a son, you may praise, hey, I love you for that or whatever. But
Right.
as a business, you say, you did a great job the way you delivered that. You did a great job creating that content. I mean, that's
And
very
that builds his
professional.
confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's important for anybody,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're a family member or not, is you've got to spend time building that person up every day,
Yep.
encouraging them because, one day you're going to put a lot of responsibility on them. So I think it's just bring them along.
Good stuff, Mike. So where we are today in 2023, our rates are volatile. The Federal Reserve is raising rates every chance they get. We have an inflation problem that has not been fully corrected. What do you, if you have a message to the consumer right now in regards to that, what would it be?
I think the biggest message I would give a consumer today is stay patient.
Okay.
Don't overanalyze things.
Uh-huh.
Do the things that you're always doing. Now, some things may be harder. I mean, in this market specifically, I think inflation, some of the things you spoke about, it hits our market harder in some cases because I believe this is a blue collar town. A lot of service industries, a lot of people that are working in restaurants, a lot of people have challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, stay patient, always do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
even if it costs you money,
Right.
but just stay patient. Things are going to improve. I mean,
Right.
I heard something a long time ago in this business, which I always go back to, is this too shall pass.
Temporary.
Everything's temporary.
Right.
So you just got to keep it in perspective. I think the media doesn't do a great job helping us keep things in perspective.
Right.
But as an individual, it's got to keep things in perspective.
If we're speaking to other entrepreneurs that are looking to move, they have to, they want to, they're moving to a new market. What are 2, 3, 4 things you might tell them that may help them?
Well, number one is you got to know who the players are. You got to research the market and know who you need to connect to pretty early. So once you identify those players, the second thing you need to be doing is finding ways to connect to them.
Okay.
Find ways that you can talk to them specifically, or maybe find out who they know and get introduced that way.
Okay.
And thirdly, I think you got to get involved in your community. If it's not sports, if it's not with your children, you got to find other ways to network and get involved. Because I think people really appreciate, people that give back.
Right.
Without expecting anything in return.
Right. Altruistically.
Absolutely.
So Mike, thanks again for joining us on our podcast. Like to just kind of end on, was it worth it? To move your family from Memphis to the Alabama Gulf Coast?
Absolutely. It was worth it.
Yeah.
Worth every phone call, just worth it.
Yeah. So your family's happy here.
Absolutely.
Well, congratulations on overcoming so many challenges and being willing to do whatever it took for your family. We're very grateful that you decided to join us.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Dusty. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Appreciate it. Month featuring local entrepreneurs, salespeople, and business owners. If you find our content valuable, please like, share, comment, tell us what you think, share your stories, and also subscribe.